The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Taemin walked inside, his black uniform perfectly pressed. Two officers followed close behind him. Their faces showed nothing, no emotion at all. Behind them floated a small device that could create holographic images. The alien species sitting in the chamber shifted in their seats. They looked uncomfortable. Humans had joined the galactic community only 30 years ago, but they were already causing problems. Not violent problems exactly, just strange problems, the kind that made the older alien races nervous. Council Speaker Veltoth stood up. He was a tall being made entirely of crystals that glowed with inner light. His people had kept peace in the galaxy for 8,000 years. He made a sound that the translation devices turned into words. Ambassador Taemin, you asked for this emergency meeting. You said you have a new defense platform to show us? Taemin shook his head slightly. Not exactly, honored speaker. We want to show you our new flagship. We call it the KHNS Indomitable. He pressed a button. The holographic device activated. A giant image appeared above the council floor. It showed a massive spaceship floating in the air above them. Several aliens moved back in their chairs. Some made sounds of surprise. The ship was enormous, 5 kilometers long from front to back. Weapons covered every surface. But that was not what disturbed the aliens. The design was completely wrong. All galactic ships were smooth and elegant. They followed mathematical principles that had been refined over thousands of years. This human ship looked like something built in a junkyard by crazy people. The armor plating was uneven. Systems were placed in odd locations. Power lines looped back on themselves for no good reason. Veltoth's crystal body flickered with confusion. This is your flagship? Ambassador, I mean no disrespect. But your engineers seem to have ignored every principle of good ship design. Every single one. Captain Jiwoo stepped forward. A small smile appeared on her face. With respect, honored speaker, we did not ignore your principles. We studied them very carefully. She pointed at the rotating hologram. And then we built something you could never understand. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Jiwoo continued. You see, every species in this council builds ships to last. You use efficient energy systems. You create elegant structures. You build ships meant to serve for centuries with almost no maintenance. Her smile grew wider. We built a ship meant to die. Before the council could respond, Admiral Hyon stepped forward. He touched the holographic controls. The image of the Indomitable suddenly exploded. The simulation showed a massive blast that would destroy everything within 50,000 kilometers. That, Hyon said in a calm voice, is what happens when we overload our main reactor. At the same time, we detonate our 37 antimatter storage units, 72 fusion cores, and the experimental singularity drive that you do not know we have been building. The chamber erupted with shouting. Veltoth's crystal structure blazed with bright light. You built a warship that is also a bomb? Are you insane? No, Taemin said quietly. We are practical. Every human military ship from the ancient navies of Earth carried a self-destruct system. When retreat is impossible and capture is unthinkable, you deny the enemy everything. Your technology, your ship, and the satisfaction of seeing you surrender. Hyon pulled up another image on the hologram. But we went further. The Indomitable is not just capable of self-destructing. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology on board has been designed to be used as a weapon. The life support system can be reversed to create poisonous gas. The medical base stores enough biological samples to create diseases. The food makers can produce chemical weapons. Even the escape pods have weapons attached to them. And the ship's artificial intelligence, Jiwoo added, has been programmed with one absolute rule. If the ship is about to be boarded or captured, it will use every resource available to take as many enemies as possible into death with it. Delegate Mortesh leaned forward with interest. His species was known for their military knowledge. But surely this is simply a more extreme version of standard protocol. Why present this to the council? Because, Taemin said, looking directly at the delegate with all his eyes, we built 57 of them. And they are not flagships. They are infiltrators. The hologram changed. It showed the Indomitable transforming. Its hull plates moved and rearranged themselves. Its energy readings changed. Within seconds, it looked exactly like a Veltothian trade ship. Each vessel, Hyon explained, can disguise itself as any known ship type in the galactic database. They can sneak deep into enemy territory. They can pretend to be civilian vessels. They can even dock at space stations without triggering any alarms. He paused for effect, until they detonate. Veltoth's entire crystal body turned deep red. You have created suicide ships? We prefer to call them last resort deterrence platforms, Taemin corrected. And before you condemn us, ask yourselves this question. What enemy would dare attack humanity if they knew that for every world they destroyed, we could slip 50 invisible bombs into their territory? What aggressor could plan an assault knowing that their victory might also be their total destruction? The council chamber descended into complete chaos. Aliens shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate action. Others wanted more information. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Veltoth raised his appendages and the chamber fell silent. This is unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented. You have brought weapons of mass destruction to the galactic community and presented them as if they were a gift. Not a gift, Taemin said. A deterrent. A promise. Attack us and we will make you regret it. Attack our allies and we will make you pay a price so high that victory becomes meaningless. And if one of your captains goes insane, another delegate shouted. What if one of these ships detonates in a civilian area? The same thing that stops any military officer from going insane, Taemin replied. Training, discipline, psychological screening, and the knowledge that such an action would mean war with the entire galaxy. We are not suicidal delegates, we are strategic. The chamber fell into an uneasy silence. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. The humans had just changed the rules of galactic warfare. They had introduced a weapon so terrifying, so unpredictable, that no one knew how to respond. And the worst part was the humans seemed proud of it. Veltoth's crystal body dimmed slightly. This council will need time to discuss this matter. Ambassador Taemin, you and your delegation will wait outside while we deliberate. Taemin bowed slightly. Of course, honored speaker. Take all the time you need. As the human delegation walked out of the chamber, Jiwoo leaned close to Taemin and whispered, Do you think they will ban them? Taemin smiled slightly. Probably, but by then the whole galaxy will know we have them, and that fear, Captain, is worth more than the ships themselves. The doors closed behind them, leaving the Galactic Council to face the reality of what humanity had brought to the stars. Not just weapons, but a completely new way of thinking about warfare. A way that terrified them to their core. Outside, Taemin and his team waited patiently. They had known this moment would come. They had planned for it, and they were ready for whatever came next. Because humans always had a backup plan. 3 weeks passed after the presentation to the Galactic Council. During those 3 weeks, the Council argued and debated. Finally, they made a decision. They demanded a live demonstration. They wanted to see if the humans were telling the truth. They wanted to verify that these insane weapons actually worked. Commander Minna stood on the bridge of the KHNS Relentless. This ship was the sister ship to the Indomitable. She looked out the main window at the assembled fleet. 37 vessels from 14 different alien species floated in space. All of them were here to watch humanity demonstrate its latest weapon. They do not believe we actually built this, her first officer, Lieutenant Sujin, said quietly. They will, Minna replied with confidence. The test was simple enough. The Relentless would demonstrate its capabilities against a remote asteroid field. The area was called Testing Zone Omega. It was full of metallic asteroids that would show up well on sensors. The alien observers would watch from a safe distance of 200,000 kilometers away. All systems are ready, reported Engineer Young-ho from his station. Hull transformation panels are ready. Weapon systems are armed. Self-destruct sequence is standing by and waiting for your command. Minna activated the communication system. Observer fleet. This is Commander Minna of the KHNS Relentless. We are beginning the demonstration sequence. First test will be hull transformation and sensor masking. She nodded to Sujin. Start protocol, Chameleon. The ship shuddered slightly. Thousands of hull plates began moving and rearranging themselves. Tiny projectors activated, bending light around the vessel. Within 2 minutes, the Relentless had changed from a human warship into a perfect copy of a Threnody cargo ship. It even produced the same fake engine emissions and broadcast the same identification signals. On the observer ships, alarms started blaring. Their long-range sensors could not tell the difference between the Relentless and a real Threnody vessel. Short-range scans showed the correct hull materials, the right energy patterns, even fake cargo in the storage areas. Impossible, whispered the Threnody observer. He was watching a human ship perfectly copy his people's technology. Even we could not detect that as a fake. Mina allowed herself a small smile. Second test will be weapons integration and adaptive firing solutions. The Relentless changed back to its original shape and accelerated toward the asteroid field. What happened next was a display of creative destruction. The main railguns fired first. They sent depleted uranium bullets through 3 asteroids in a row. Then came the missiles. But these were not ordinary missiles. Each missile was a tiny automated factory. As it flew through space, it made copies of itself. One missile became dozens. Dozens became hundreds. By the time they reached the asteroid field, thousands of tiny explosives carpeted the region. They all detonated together in overlapping explosions. Laser batteries fire at full spread, Mina commanded. 64 laser weapons fired at the same time. Each one tracked a different target with perfect accuracy. The asteroids did not just explode. They were surgically taken apart, carved into pieces by overlapping fields of laser fire that left no gap, no safe spot anywhere. Now, Mina said quietly, show them what we really built. Young Ho's fingers moved across his control panel, activating weaponized auxiliary systems. The Relentless's medical bay began releasing biological samples into space. The samples immediately began copying themselves in the vacuum. They created clouds of aggressive microscopic organisms that ate any matter they touched. The food synthesizers shot out streams of reactive chemicals. These chemicals caught fire when they touched the asteroid's mineral composition. They created cascading chemical fires in an environment that should not support any fire at all. Even the ship's waste recycling system joined in. It launched compressed packets of organic matter that exploded like organic fragmentation grenades. By the ancients, whispered Delegate Mortesh. He was watching the sensor readings carefully. They have weaponized everything. Even the toilets are weapons. Not the toilets, corrected a human technician who was monitoring the demonstration feed. Those are actually pretty standard. But the sewage processing plant? Absolutely a weapon. Mina watched the asteroid field dissolve into expanding clouds of debris and strange radiation. Final test will be self-destruct capability. Observer fleet. We recommend you increase distance to 500,000 kilometers. There was immediate panic as the observer ships burned their engines hard and moved away from the testing zone. Engineering, set self-destruct for 60 seconds. Start reactor cascade, but keep singularity drive at standby. I want a demonstration, not a black hole. Understood, Young Ho replied. His fingers were steady despite the size of what he was starting. Reactor cascade in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cascade initiated. Deep inside the ship's core, carefully designed safety systems began to fail, but they failed in a precisely calculated sequence. Antimatter containment fields weakened exactly as planned. Fusion reactors began feeding energy back into each other. Power lines overloaded in a cascading chain reaction. This chain reaction had been engineered with the same care as the ship's normal operations. Crew transfer complete, Sujin reported. All personnel are clear. Mina was the last to leave. She was transported off the bridge by emergency beam just as the Relentless began to tear itself apart. The explosion was magnificent. It was not the clean, simple detonation of a normal ship dying. This was a choreographed catastrophe. It released energy in carefully timed pulses. First, the antimatter storage units detonated, creating a sphere of pure destruction. Then the fusion cores added thermal and kinetic energy. The reactor cascade followed, and finally, just before the singularity drive would have activated, the ship's artificial intelligence triggered every remaining explosive, chemical weapon, biological sample, and volatile substance on board. The result was an expanding sphere of destruction 50 kilometers wide. Secondary effects extended for hundreds of kilometers beyond that. Radiation, exotic particles, clouds of self-copying microscopic organisms, chemical fires that burned without oxygen, all of it mixed into a lethal combination that would make the region dangerous for decades. And this was the controlled demonstration. A real detonation, with the singularity drive fully active, would have been many times worse. The observer fleet sat in stunned silence. No one spoke for several minutes. On board the Veltothian flagship, Speaker Veltoth's crystal structure had gone completely dark. This was the equivalent of a human going pale with shock. They built a weapon that makes scorched earth look merciful, he whispered to himself. They cannot seriously intend to deploy these ships in real combat. But they did intend to deploy them, and the galaxy was about to learn exactly what that meant. On the human command ship, Admiral Hyan watched the debris field expand. He felt no joy, no satisfaction, only grim determination. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every sensor reading, every energy signature, every detail. The Council will want proof that we followed their test parameters exactly." "Sir," an aide asked quietly, "do you think they will approve the ships now?" Hyan shook his head slowly. "No, they will try to ban them. But it does not matter anymore. We have shown the galaxy what we are capable of. We have proven that humanity will not be easy prey. That is worth more than any Council approval." He turned away from the viewing screen. "Prepare the fleet for return to Earth, and send a message to the Council. Tell them we await their decision." As the human ships began their journey home, the alien observers remained in the testing zone. They studied the readings. They analyzed the data. They tried to understand what they had just witnessed. But understanding and accepting were two different things. The aliens understood the technology. They understood the tactics. What they could not accept was the philosophy behind it. The willingness to destroy your own ship, your own technology, your own people if necessary, just to deny victory to the enemy. It was a very human way of thinking, and it terrified them. Back on Earth, the news of the successful demonstration spread quickly. People celebrated in the streets. They felt safe knowing that their military had such powerful weapons. They did not understand yet that these weapons would soon be taken away, that the very power that made them feel safe would be the reason for their removal. But for now, humanity celebrated. They had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. They had proven that being the youngest species in the galactic community did not mean being the weakest. And in the corridors of power on Earth, military planners were already working on the next generation of weapons. Because they knew the Council would never approve the indomitable class, they knew that humanity would need something new, something different, something that the aliens could not predict or counter. The demonstration was over. But the real test was about to begin. The attack came 3 months after the relentless demonstration. The Krell hegemony was a militant species from the edge of the galaxy. They had refused to join the Galactic Council. They believed that strength was the only law that mattered. Now they launched a massive assault on the Tarvan colonies. These were peaceful settlements protected by Council treaty. The Tarvan were gentle beings. They had evolved from herd animals on a low-gravity world. They had no military, no weapons technology, no understanding of organized violence. They relied completely on the Council for protection. That protection failed them. The Council's response fleet was still 6 days away when the first Krell ships entered orbit around Tarvan Prime. The orbital bombardment began within 1 hour. 3 billion souls cried out for help that would not arrive in time. In the human sector of space, Admiral Hyan received the distress call. He made a decision that would change galactic history forever. "How many of our special vessels are operational?" he asked his aide. Commander Hana checked the roster quickly. 23, sir. The rest are still in testing trials. Send them all. Authorization code Hyan Omega 73. Full autonomous operation. Hana's face went pale. "Sir, the Council has not approved deployment of these ships for actual combat situations." "The Council is not here," Hyan cut her off. "Those people are dying right now. We can argue about regulations later. Send the ships immediately." 23 vessels activated their quantum drives. These ships officially did not have names, only designation codes. They jumped toward Tarvan space. Their crews had volunteered for suicide missions, though they did not expect to die. Not immediately anyway. The lead ship was designated K-017. It was commanded by Captain Dal Su, a veteran of humanity's wars before they made contact with aliens. He studied the tactical display as they emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Tarvan system. 17 Krell warships in orbit around Tarvan Prime, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Hyo Jin. Multiple orbital bombardment platforms are active. Civilian casualties are estimated in the hundreds of millions and still rising. Dalsu's jaw tightened with anger. "Execute Infiltration Protocol Alpha. I want us looking like a Krell supply convoy. Get us into orbit with those murderers." The K-017 and 4 sister ships transformed their configurations. They adopted the angular, aggressive lines of Krell military design. Their identification transponders began broadcasting Krell codes. Human intelligence had stolen these codes 3 years ago. The Krell did not know the codes were compromised. The human ships approached the orbital battle group. They broadcast requests for docking clearance. They claimed to be carrying urgent supplies for the bombardment fleet. The Krell never suspected anything was wrong. "We are being assigned docking vectors," Yojin reported. "They want us to dock alongside their flagship, the Krell's Vengeance." "Perfect," Dalsu said quietly. "That is exactly where we want to be. Helm, take us in nice and slow. Weapons, prepare every system for simultaneous activation. Engineering, begin pre-cascade protocols on the reactor." His crew worked in complete silence. They all knew what was coming next. Distance to Krell flagship is 500 meters. 300 meters. 100 meters. "Now," Dalsu commanded. K-07 dropped its disguise and fired every weapon at the same time. At point-blank range, the effect was catastrophic. Railgun bullets punched through the Krell flagship's shields and armor, as if they were not there. Missiles burrowed into the wounds and detonated inside the ship. Laser batteries carved through critical systems with surgical precision. But Dalsu was not trying to disable the flagship. He was trying to cripple it just enough to prevent it from escaping what came next. "Collision course locked," the helmsman reported. "Impact in 10 seconds. All hands emergency transport," Dalsu ordered. "Beam to the rescue ships." "Move now!" The crew vanished in bursts of light. Emergency transporters pulled them across space to the K-019 and K-020, which were waiting at a safe distance. Dalsu was the last to leave. He was transported away just as K-017 slammed into the Krell flagship's engineering section at full speed. The collision alone would have been devastating, but Dalsu had started the reactor cascade before abandoning ship. K-07 did not just crash. It detonated, taking the Krell flagship and 2 nearby cruisers with it in a blast that lit up the Tarvan sky like a second sun. The remaining Krell ships scattered in panic. But the other human vessels were already among them. K-08 had disguised itself as a Krell destroyer. It had positioned itself in the center of the enemy formation. When it detonated, it took out 4 more ships. K-014 rammed a Krell carrier. Its weaponized systems turned the carrier's own ammunition storage into secondary explosives. Within 20 minutes, the Krell fleet was completely destroyed. 17 warships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. They had been destroyed by just 8 human vessels. All of those human ships had been sacrificed in the process. The rescued human crews regrouped on board K-019. It was now under Captain Junseo's command. They watched the debris field expand, marked by the cooling fires of destroyed warships. "Orbital bombardment platforms are still active," the tactical officer reported. "Should we engage them?" Junseo shook his head. "Negative. The Council fleet will be here in 4 days. Those platforms cannot do much more damage without the warships to coordinate them. We have done our job." "At the cost of 8 ships," someone said quietly. "Ships we built to be destroyed," Junseo replied firmly, "and they saved 3 billion lives. I would say that is more than a fair trade." On the surface of Tarvan Prime, the gentle herd beings looked up at their sky. They saw the fires of battle dying out. They saw their attackers destroyed. They did not know yet who had saved them. They did not know the price that had been paid. They only knew that they were alive, that their children were safe, that the nightmare was over. In orbit, Junseo began composing his report to Admiral Hyun. It would be a simple report. 8 ships deployed, 17 enemy vessels destroyed, 3 billion civilians saved. Mission accomplished, but he knew the real consequences were just beginning. The Council would be furious that humans had deployed these weapons without authorization. The other species would be terrified that humanity had proven the effectiveness of suicide tactics in real combat. The political fallout would be massive, but none of that mattered to Junseo. He had saved 3 billion lives. That was enough. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species praised humanity's quick action and selfless sacrifice. Others condemned the use of such terrible weapons. Many simply felt fear of what humanity was capable of, fear of what they might do next. The Galactic Council called an emergency session within hours of receiving the detailed battle reports. Ambassadors from every member species gathered to discuss what had happened at Tarvan Prime. Some called it a heroic rescue. Others called it terrorism. Everyone agreed that it changed everything. The humans had not just saved the Tarvan. They had proven beyond any doubt that their suicide ships worked exactly as advertised. They had shown that 8 ships, properly deployed, could destroy a fleet more than twice their size. They had demonstrated that infiltration and detonation was a viable military tactic, and most terrifying of all, they had done it without hesitation, without asking for permission, without considering the diplomatic consequences. They had simply acted. Because it was the right thing to do. Because lives were at stake. Because no one else could help in time. That kind of moral certainty, combined with weapons of mass destruction, terrified the galaxy more than anything else. On Earth, Admiral Hyon received Junseo's report. He read it carefully, then filed it away. He knew what was coming. He knew the Council would demand answers, would demand that these weapons be banned. He was ready for that fight, because Tarvin Prime had proven something important. It had proven that sometimes the most terrible weapons were also the most necessary, that sometimes salvation came with a terrible price, that sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking all the rules, and humanity was very good at breaking rules. The emergency session of the Galactic Council happened within hours of receiving detailed reports from Tarvin Prime. The chamber was completely packed. Delegates were standing in spaces that were normally left empty. All of them were demanding answers. All of them were angry or afraid or both. Ambassador Taemin stood alone at the human podium. He faced a wall of anger and fear from hundreds of alien species. You deployed weapons of mass destruction without council authorization. Veltoth's crystal structure blazed with red fury. You violated 17 interstellar treaties. You destroyed 8 of your own warships. You set a precedent that threatens the very foundation of galactic peace. We saved 3 billion lives, Taemin replied in a calm voice. The Council's response fleet was 6 days away. The Tarvin would have been extinct by the time you arrived. We acted because no one else could act in time. Delegate Mortesh surprised everyone by speaking in support of the humans. The human actions were unauthorized, yes, but they were also effective. The Krell fleet was completely destroyed with minimal damage to Tarvin infrastructure. By my analysis, Ambassador Taemin's people performed a perfect rescue operation. A perfect rescue that involved ramming warships into other warships and detonating them like bombs. Another delegate shouted. This is not civilized warfare. This is terrorism. Taemin's expression became harder, more serious. No, terrorism is what the Krell were doing. They were bombarding defenseless civilians from orbit. What we did was stop them with the only weapons we had that could arrive in time. If that makes you uncomfortable, I suggest you build a faster response fleet. The method is not relevant. Veltoth cut through the arguing voices. Ambassador, your species has demonstrated a complete disregard for the rules of galactic engagement. These suicide ships of yours, they are unpredictable. They are uncontrollable. What stops a human captain from going insane and detonating one of these vessels at a civilian station? Or a trade hub? Or even council headquarters? The same thing that stops any military officer from going insane, Taemin shot back. Training, discipline, psychological screening, and the knowledge that such an action would mean war with the entire galaxy. We are not suicidal, Speaker Veltoth. We are practical. We are strategic. Practical, Veltoth repeated. His crystal structure flickered through several colors, showing his agitation. You call building ships designed to explode practical? I call it deterrence, Taemin said firmly. Every species in this chamber has weapons they hope to never use. Antimatter torpedoes, stellar converters, quantum destabilizers. You maintain them as deterrents, as bargaining chips, as weapons of last resort. Our ships are the same thing. Just more honest about their purpose. They are not the same. The Thernodi delegate rose from his seat. His multiple limbs gestured frantically in the air. A torpedo is a tool, a controlled weapon with a specific purpose. Your ships are chaos incarnate. They can disguise themselves as anything. They can infiltrate anywhere. They can detonate with enough force to crack a moon. How can there be any trust, any stability, when humanity can hide bombs inside civilian shipping lanes? We would never do such a thing to innocent people, Taemin began. You already did exactly that. The delegate interrupted him. You disguised your warships as Krell supply vessels. Yes, it was against an enemy during combat, but you have proven the capability exists. You have shown that it works perfectly. What stops you from doing it to us? To any of us? The chamber erupted again. Accusations flew through the air like weapons. Species that had been allies with humanity for years were now questioning everything. They wondered about every human ship that had ever docked at their stations. Had any of them been these disguised weapons? Were there human bombs already hidden in their space, just waiting for orders to detonate? Ambassador Insu, who was Taemin's second in command, leaned close and whispered quietly, "We are losing them. They are going to call for a ban on our ships." "Let them," Taemin whispered back. "We have already made our point. The whole galaxy knows what we are capable of now." Veltoth called for order. His resonance filled the chamber with a commanding presence that forced everyone to be quiet. This council will now vote on Emergency Resolution 7743. This resolution calls for the immediate prohibition of all human warships designated as self-destruct capable infiltrators. It also demands the decommissioning of all existing vessels of this class. All delegates in favor of this resolution? 317 delegates voted yes. The number appeared on the main display screen. All delegates opposed to this resolution? Only 5 voted no. These were humanity's closest allies, species who valued practical results over comfortable protocols. All delegates who abstained from voting? 12 delegates abstained. They were not sure what to think. They understood humanity's reasoning, but they also feared the consequences. "The resolution passes by overwhelming majority," Veltoth declared. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Humanity, you are hereby ordered to decommission all vessels of this type within 60 standard days. Failure to comply will result in immediate economic sanctions and possible expulsion from the Galactic Council." Taemin nodded slowly, showing that he understood. "We will comply with the Council's decision. You have our word on this." The delegates seemed to relax slightly. They were relieved that the humans were not going to fight the ban. They were relieved that this nightmare weapon would be destroyed. "However," Taemin continued, the tension in the room immediately returned. "I want it noted in the official record that this ban is being enacted not because our weapons were used improperly. It is being enacted because they were used successfully, not because they caused unnecessary destruction, but because they prevented a genocide. The Council is banning these vessels because you are afraid of them, not because they are wrong, not because they are immoral, but simply because they are effective and you cannot control them. Your objection is noted for the record," Veltoth said coldly. "You have 60 days to comply. This session is adjourned." As the session ended, delegates began filing out of the chamber. Many of them were talking quietly among themselves. Some looked relieved. Others looked worried. A few looked thoughtful, wondering what humanity would do next. Mortesh approached the human delegation as they prepared to leave. "A private word, Ambassador?" They stepped into a small alcove away from the main crowd. The military delegate's multiple eyes studied Taemin very carefully. "You are going to comply with the ban, are you not?" "We said we would comply. We gave our word. Yes, you did. But you have already got something else planned. I can see it in your expression, in the way you carry yourself." Taemin smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knows a secret. "Delegate Mortesh, we just proved that 57 invisible, self-destructing warships could hold the entire galaxy hostage. We made every species in Council space terrified of what might be lurking in their trade lanes, what might be hiding at their stations. And now they are ordering us to decommission them, to destroy them publicly." "Yes, that is what the resolution requires. So what is your point?" "So we will decommission them. We will do it publicly with full documentation. We will have Council observers present at every scrapyard where we destroy these ships." Taemin's smile widened slightly, "And while everyone is watching us destroy the weapons they know about, we will be building the weapons they do not know about. The weapons they cannot even imagine yet." Mortesh's eyes widened with understanding. "You magnificent, terrifying lunatics." "We prefer the word adaptable," Taemin corrected him. "Humanity learned a long time ago that the best weapon is the one your enemy does not see coming. The galaxy just spent 3 months being afraid of our suicide ships. Now they will spend the next 3 decades wondering what we built to replace them. That fear, that uncertainty is worth more than any actual weapon." "And what did you build to replace them?" Mortesh asked, genuinely curious. "That information is classified," Taemin said cheerfully. "But I can tell you this much. Whatever we deploy next will make the Indomitable class look primitive by comparison. It will be something completely unexpected, something that does not violate a single Council regulation, but something that will be just as effective at keeping humanity safe." He walked away, leaving Mortesh standing alone in the alcove. The delegate was uncertain whether to be impressed or horrified by the human ambassador's words. Probably both, he decided. With humans, it was always both emotions at the same time. As Taemin rejoined his delegation, Insu asked quietly, "Did we really already build something to replace the Indomitable class?" "Of course we did," Taemin replied. "We started building it the day after we presented the Indomitable to the Council. Did you really think we would put all our hopes on one class of ship? We always have a backup plan. And a backup for the backup. That is how humanity survives." They walked out of the council building together, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who thought they had won, who thought they had neutralized the human threat, who thought they could sleep safely now. They had no idea what was coming next, and that was exactly how humanity wanted it. 60 days later, the last of the Indomitable class vessels was publicly decommissioned. The ceremony was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Species on thousands of worlds watched as the KHNS Inevitable was carefully stripped down. Its weapons were removed one by one. Its reactor cores were taken out and sealed in special containers. Its hull plating was salvaged for recycling. Council observers documented every single step. They wanted to ensure complete compliance with Resolution 7743. The ceremony was very formal and serious. Admiral Hyan himself oversaw the decommissioning. His expression was like stone as he watched the ship that had saved Tarvin Prime being reduced to scrap metal. His face showed no emotion at all. "It seems wrong," Captain Jiwoo said quietly. She was standing beside him, also watching. "These ships were heroes. They saved billions of lives." "They were tools," Hyan corrected her. "And like all tools, they had their time and purpose. Now that time is over. Now we move forward with new tools, new methods, new ways to protect humanity." In orbit above Earth, the human delegation hosted a reception for the Council observers. They were celebrating the successful decommissioning of all the Indomitable class vessels. Ambassador Taemin raised a glass of Earth whiskey. He proposed a toast to everyone present. "To peace," he declared loudly, "and to the understanding that sometimes the best way to keep peace is to be capable of terrible war. To be strong enough that no one dares attack you. To be creative enough that enemies fear what you might do next." The council observers drank awkwardly. They were still not entirely comfortable with human philosophy. They did not fully understand how humans thought about warfare and peace. What none of them knew, what the council would not discover for another 15 years, was that the decommissioning ceremony had been completely genuine. Every Indomitable class vessel was truly destroyed, down to the last bolt and wire. The humans were not hiding any of them. They were not keeping any in secret storage, but in shipyards scattered across human space, hidden behind civilian corporations and mining operations. A completely new generation of vessels was already taking shape. These ships were nothing like the Indomitable class. These new ships did not need to disguise themselves as other vessels. They were other vessels. They were genuine civilian craft, built from the very beginning with secondary military capabilities. These capabilities were so deeply integrated into the basic design that they could not be detected without completely tearing the ship apart piece by piece. There was a colony transport ship that could deploy swarms of autonomous combat drones from its cargo holds. There was a medical ship whose scanner arrays could be instantly repurposed as weapons-grade sensor jammers. There was a mining vessel whose refinement lasers could be recalibrated into powerful cutting beams, capable of slicing through warship armor. Thousands of ships were being built. All of them were civilian vessels. All of them were perfectly legal under council regulations. All of them were capable of becoming warships at a moment's notice. Lieutenant Commander Minji oversaw the construction of one such vessel. It was officially registered as the merchant ship Prosperity Dawn. She walked through the cargo bays with the lead designer, engineer Jae-sung. He was explaining how the hidden systems worked. "The modular containers can deploy in 47 seconds, Jae-sung explained with obvious pride. "Each container holds a complete weapons package. Missiles, railguns, point defense systems, everything you need. To any inspector, they look exactly like standard cargo pods. But trigger the release code and this merchant ship becomes a heavy cruiser in less than 1 minute." "And the council will never discover this?" Minji asked with some doubt. "They will discover it eventually," Jae-sung admitted honestly. "But by the time they figure it out, we will have moved on to something else entirely. That is the human advantage, Commander. We do not build according to their rules. We build around their rules. We find the gaps, the loopholes, the things they never thought to prohibit, and we exploit those gaps completely. 5 years after the ban was enacted, the Krell hegemony attempted another assault. This time they targeted the mineral-rich Cordova system. They jumped into the system with a fleet of 40 warships. They expected to overwhelm the Light Council patrol that was stationed there. They expected easy victory. Instead, they found themselves facing 73 civilian vessels that suddenly deployed military-grade weapons. These ships fought with perfect coordination that spoke of extensive training and practice. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and intense. When it was finally over, the Krell fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost. The Council investigated immediately, of course. They boarded the human vessels. They scanned every system with the most advanced sensors available. They interviewed every captain and crew member. They searched desperately for violations of Resolution 7743, and they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. The ships were civilian vessels with improvised weapons. This was perfectly legal under Council law. It was considered an emergency measure that any species could take when under attack. The fact that the improvised weapons were more advanced than most military-grade systems did not violate any law. The fact that the civilian crews fought like veteran soldiers could not be proven to violate any regulation. The fact that 73 separate ships coordinated their efforts with military precision was suspicious, but not illegal. The Council could do nothing except watch and worry. 10 years after the ban, Ambassador Taemin retired from active diplomatic service. He was given the honorary title of Ambassador Emeritus. He returned to Earth to spend time with his family. One afternoon, he sat in a garden on Earth sipping tea with his granddaughter. Her name was Sora. She had just been appointed to the diplomatic corps. She would follow in her grandfather's footsteps. "Did we do the right thing, grandfather?" she asked him seriously. "Building those ships? Frightening the entire galaxy? Making them afraid of us?" Taemin was quiet for a long moment. He watched birds flying through the trees. He listened to the wind rustling the leaves. Then he spoke carefully. The Indomitable class saved billions of lives at Tarvin Prime. Those ships ended a war before it could truly begin. They proved that humanity, despite being the youngest species in the Council, could not be dismissed. Could not be attacked without serious consequences. Could not be treated as weak or irrelevant. He sipped his tea slowly. "Yes, I think we did the right thing. I have no regrets. But they banned the ships. They made us destroy them all." "They banned what they could see and understand," Taemin corrected her with a slight smile. "But they cannot ban human creativity. They cannot ban our refusal to accept the word impossible. They cannot ban our ability to find solutions that no one else would think of. Every time they write a new regulation to control us, we find a new way around it. Not to break their rules, but to follow them so creatively that the rules become meaningless." "Is that really peace, though?" Sora asked thoughtfully. "Or is it just a very polite arms race? A competition where everyone pretends to follow the rules while actually preparing for war?" "It is survival," Taemin said firmly. "The galaxy is vast and ancient. It is filled with species who have been fighting each other since before Earth even had complex life. We are the newcomers, the young ones, the species that does not know its place yet. If we played by their rules, followed their traditions, accepted their limitations without question, we would be conquered within a single generation. We would be slaves or extinct." He set down his teacup and looked at his granddaughter with serious eyes. "Instead, we showed them that attacking humanity comes with an unacceptable price. That we will sacrifice our own ships, our own people, if absolutely necessary, to make invasion too costly to attempt. We turned our weakness, being young and small and technologically inferior, into a kind of strength. We embraced tactics that they considered beneath them, tactics that they found disturbing or incomprehensible. The suicide ships," Sora said quietly. "The deterrent ships," he corrected her gently. "They were never meant to be used regularly. They were meant to make war unthinkable, to make potential enemies stop and reconsider before attacking us or our allies. Did it work? Did they achieve that goal?" Taemin smiled with genuine satisfaction. "There has not been a major galactic conflict in 15 years. Small skirmishes, yes. Border disputes happen regularly. But full-scale war? The kind that destroys entire species and devastates whole sectors of space? It has not happened, not once. Because every potential aggressor knows that somewhere out there, Humanity has something waiting for them, something they cannot predict or counter, something that will make their victory taste like ashes in their mouths. Sora was quiet for a while, processing everything her grandfather had told her. Finally, she asked, "And the new ships? The civilian ones that are not really civilian? What ships?" Taemin asked with complete innocence. "I am retired now. I know nothing about current military projects or strategic planning." They both smiled at each other. They both understood the game. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds and in 1,000 different shipyards, human engineers continued their work. They were building ships that were more than they appeared to be.